The morning sky over Seoul turned white. Before it turned red, Hyun Woo was drinking his third coffee of the day when the first explosion lit up the horizon. He dropped the cup. Ceramic shattered on the concrete floor of the observation post, but he barely heard it. His eyes were locked on the massive column of fire rising from downtown. "Sir, we have incoming signals," Jae-young said from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as they moved across the old radio equipment. "Multiple impacts across the globe. New York is gone. London is gone. Beijing, Tokyo, Moscow, they're all reporting massive casualties." Hyun Woo grabbed the railing of the bunker entrance. The DMZ facility had been built decades ago, designed to survive a nuclear war. Now it might be the only thing keeping them alive. Who is attacking us? Is it North Korea? Russia? No, sir. Jiang pulled off her headset. Her face was pale. "The transmissions are coming from orbit. It's not human." The ground shook again. This time closer. Hyun Woo could see the streak of light as something massive fell from the sky and hit the Han River. The water exploded upward in a column that must have been a kilometer high. When it fell back down, the wave that followed swallowed buildings like they were children's toys, everyone inside. "Now," Hyun Woo shouted, "seal the blast doors." Sergeant Hyun was already moving, pushing soldiers toward the entrance. The man was built like a tank, and twice as stubborn. He had fought in 3 border skirmishes and never backed down from anything. But even he looked scared now. Private Mina stumbled as she ran, her medical kit bouncing on her back. She was young, barely 22, and this was supposed to be her quiet posting before she left the military. Now she was running for her life from an enemy she couldn't even see. The blast doors slammed shut with a boom that echoed through the facility. Hyun Woo counted heads. 43 soldiers. That was all he had left. Everyone else had been in Seoul on leave or stationed at bases that were probably nothing but craters. "Now, sir, there's a broadcast." Gi had her headset back on. "It's coming through on all frequencies, every channel, every language." Put it on speaker. The voice that came through was wrong. It had no emotion, no accent. It sounded like it was being generated by a computer trying to imitate human speech. "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Valkyrie Collective. Resistance is unnecessary. You will be integrated into our society. Those who comply will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be eliminated. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Dayan laughed. It was a bitter, angry sound. "They think we'll just surrender. They don't know us very well. They killed billions in the first strike." Someone said, "What can we do against that?" Hyun Woo looked at the faces around him. Some were terrified. Some were angry. Most were both. These were soldiers. They had trained their whole lives for war, but nobody trains for the end of the world. "We survive," he said, "and then we fight back." Over the next 3 hours, they learned more about their enemy. The Valkyrie ships were massive, hanging in orbit like dark moons. They had weapons that could level cities from space. Their ground forces were landing now, moving through the ruins with mechanical precision. Jung managed to get video feeds from cameras that were still working. The aliens wore armor that looked like it was made from black glass. They moved in perfect formations, scanning everything with devices that glowed blue, but they were slow. Careful, they checked every corner. Before advancing, they scanned every building. Before entering, they acted like they expected traps there. Afraid, Hyan Wu realized. They hit us hard because they wanted us too scared to fight back, but they don't want to actually fight us. Maybe they've never had to. Jiang said she had been listening to their communications. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. The Valkyrie were confused. They had expected humans to surrender immediately. Instead, they were getting reports of soldiers fighting back with primitive weapons, of civilians throwing rocks and homemade explosives, of entire units refusing to broadcast surrender signals. That night, the first patrol came near their bunker. Hyan Wu watched them through the periscope, 6 aliens moving in a tight group. Their armor made them look invincible, but they kept their formation too tight. One grenade would take out half of them. Do Hyan Han Wu said quietly, "You still have those training mines?" The sergeant grinned. It was not a nice expression. "Yes, sir." "Want me to give our guests a welcome gift? Make it count." The explosion lit up the night. When the smoke cleared, 3 aliens were down. The other 3 scattered, firing blindly into the darkness. Their weapons burned trees and melted concrete, but they hit nothing. After 10 minutes, they retreated, dragging their dead with them. Mina had been watching from another position. "They bleed," she said. There was wonder in her voice. "I thought they would be machines or something, but they bleed. That means they can die." Hyan Wu nodded. The aliens had expected to find helpless primitives. Instead, they found soldiers who had been training for war since childhood. They found humans who knew how to use terrain, how to hide, how to hit and run. They found a species that had been fighting itself for thousands of years and had learned every dirty trick in the book. The Valkyrie had made a mistake. They thought humanity was helpless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 months after the sky fell, Hyan Wu stood in what used to be a shopping mall. The roof was gone. Most of the walls were gone, but the underground parking garage was intact. And that was all that mattered. 200 people lived down there now. Some were soldiers like him. Most were civilians who had survived the initial attacks and refused to give up. "We got another group coming in from Busalsen," Lieutenant Hayajan said. She had been a military intelligence officer before the invasion. Now she ran the Resistance's information network with nothing but old radios and a lot of courage. 30 fighters. They say they've been hitting supply convoys. Hyan Wu studied the map spread across a broken table. It was covered in marks showing where the aliens controlled territory and where humans still fought. Valkyrie held every major city, every port, every airport, but the areas between were chaos. The aliens couldn't be everywhere at once, and humans were very good at using that weakness. "Tell them to come through the subway tunnels," Hyan Wu said. "The aliens won't follow them down there." That was the strange thing about the Valkyrie. They had ships that could destroy planets. They had weapons that could melt steel, but they hated enclosed spaces. They hated places where they couldn't see clearly. They hated environments they couldn't control. It made them predictable, and predictable enemies were enemies you could kill. Jiang came down the stairs, moving carefully in the darkness. She carried a piece of alien equipment that looked like a black crystal wrapped in wires. I got into their communications again, she said. You need to hear this. She pressed a button. The voice that came out was being translated by their captured computer. It sounded frustrated, almost afraid. Command, this is Ground Unit 7. We have lost another patrol in the underground structure. The humans ambushed us with primitive explosives. We are requesting air support to collapse all subway tunnels in this sector. Another voice responded. Request denied. The Emperor wants the infrastructure intact for integration. You will adapt your tactics. These humans do not fight like the simulations showed. They do not hold positions. They do not form battle lines. They hide and strike and disappear. How are we supposed to fight an enemy that refuses to face us properly? Jiang turned off the device. They don't understand guerrilla warfare, she said. Their whole society is built on order and rules. The idea of fighting dirty confuses them. De Hyen laughed from where he sat, cleaning an alien rifle. He had taken it off a dead Valkyrie soldier 2 weeks ago and figured out how to make it work. Good, let's confuse them to death. The sergeant had become their weapons expert. He could take apart alien technology and combine it with human tools to create new weapons. His favorite was a simple pipe bomb wrapped around a Valkyrie power cell. It wasn't fancy, but it could punch through their armor like paper. We have a problem, though, Higgins said. The aliens are bringing in more troops. My sources say another ship arrived yesterday. That's 10,000 more soldiers. And how many of us are there now? Hyen Wu asked. In Seoul, maybe 5,000 fighters. Worldwide, we think about 2 million. People are actively resisting. But that's nothing compared to their numbers. Private Mina spoke up from where she was treating a wounded fighter. We don't need to match their numbers. We just need to make them bleed. Every day they're here, they lose soldiers. Every day we learn more about how to fight them. How long before their people back home start asking why this has taken so long? She had changed a lot. In 3 months, the scared young medic was gone. Now she moved through the ruins like a ghost, treating wounded fighters, and sometimes picking up a rifle to fight herself. She had killed 3 Ari soldiers last week when they surprised a medical station. She never talked about it, but Hyen Wu had seen the look in her eyes afterward. It was the look of someone who had crossed a line and knew they could never go back. Corporal Sun Min arrived that evening with news that changed everything. He was an engineer who had been working on civilian construction projects before the war. Now he built weapons and traps. From whatever he could find, I figured out how to bypass their shields, he said, holding up a small device. Their armor absorbs energy weapons and deflects bullets, but it doesn't stop slow-moving objects. Something about the way the field works. Explain it in simple terms. Hun Wu said. You can't shoot them, but you can stab them or hit them with something moving slower than a certain speed. That's why our explosives work. The shrapnel isn't moving fast enough to trigger the shields. They picked up a knife, so old-fashioned close combat. If you're crazy enough to get that close. Yes, I'm that crazy. That night they tested the theory. Valkyrie patrol came through the ruins. 6 soldiers moving in their usual tight formation. Hyen Wu and LT Unk and GT's team waited in the shadows of a collapsed building. When the aliens were close enough, Hyen and 3 others dropped from above. They moved fast using knives and Bayonets, the Valkyrie shield sparked. And failed, their armor could stop. Bullets but not cold steel pushed by. Desperate hands, it was brutal, it was. Savage, it was effective, when it was. Over 6 aliens lay dead, and only one human was injured. Men patched up the wounded soldier while the others stripped the bodies of weapons and equipment. Every piece was valuable. Every scrap of technology was another tool they could use. They'll come looking for this patrol, He Jin warned. Let them come, Haiyan Wu said. We'll be gone before they arrive. That's the advantage. We don't hold ground. We don't protect bases. We're everywhere and nowhere. Over the next month, the resistance spread the word. Stab, don't shoot, hit and run. Never stay in one place. Make them afraid of every shadow, every corner, every moment. The Valkyrie started traveling in larger groups. They stopped patrolling at night. They abandoned the underground areas completely. They were winning their battles, but they were losing the war. And slowly, very slowly, they were starting to realize it. Yong, a civilian who knew Seoul's underground better than anyone, led them through tunnels they Valkyrie didn't even know existed. There are hundreds of kilometers of passages down here, he said. Old subway lines, sewer systems, maintenance tunnels. You could hide an army down here. Yan Wu smiled. That's exactly what we're going to do. 1 year after the invasion, Yan Wu stood in a bunker 200 m underground and watched the world fight back. The screens in front of him showed resistance cells across every continent: Africa, Europe, North and South America, Asia, Australia, even Antarctica had a small group fighting from their research station. Everywhere the Valkyrie had landed, humans were making them pay for it. Paracel just took out another supply depot. Jiang reported she sat at a console surrounded by alien technology they had captured and repurposed. Moscow resistance is reporting successful ambush of a command unit. Tokyo is requesting more instructions on building the new explosives. Haiyan Wu nodded. His hair had more gray in it now. He had lost weight. They all had. But his eyes were harder, sharper. He had learned to fight a war that no human had ever fought before, and he was teaching others to do the same. Send Tokyo the plan Sun Min developed and tell Moscow to be careful. The Valkyrie are getting smarter about our tactics. It was true, the aliens were adapting. But slowly, too slowly, they had spent thousands of years as the dominant power. In their part of the galaxy, they had conquered dozens of worlds, but all of them had surrendered quickly once they saw the Valkyrie's power. None of them had fought back like humans did. Lieutenant Heijin entered the command center with a tablet showing intercepted communications. You need to see this. The Valkyrie High Command is having a meeting about Earth. They're calling it the Long War now. She played the recording. The translation software made the alien voices sound mechanical, but the frustration came through clearly. The Earth pacification was supposed to take 3 months. It has been 1 year. We have lost more soldiers on this one planet than in our last century of expansion. The Emperor demands an explanation. Another voice responded. The humans do not follow standard military doctrine. They do not defend their territory in organized formations. They attack from hiding and retreat before we can respond. When we destroy one cell, 3 more appear. It is like fighting shadows. Then adapt. Use the lessons from previous campaigns. There are no lessons, no species has ever fought like this. They turn their own cities into traps. They use their civilians as intelligence networks. They build weapons from our own equipment. Yesterday, a human attacked one of our soldiers with a sharpened piece of metal. The warrior survived, but the psychological impact on the unit was severe. Our soldiers are afraid to patrol alone now. Hien Wu turned off the recording. They're breaking. We just need to keep the pressure on. Dan had trained 50 other soldiers in explosives and close combat. Those 50 had trained hundreds more. Now there were thousands of fighters who knew how to kill Valkyrie soldiers with nothing but determination and improvised weapons. I got a question though, the sergeant said. We're hurting them, but can we actually win? They still control orbit. They can still level cities if they want. They won't. Jiang said, I've been analyzing their communications for months. The Valkyrie Emperor wants Earth intact. He sees us as a prize, not a threat. If he admits we're too dangerous to conquer, he loses face with his own people, so he keeps sending more soldiers instead of just destroying the planet. Private So Yun spoke from her station. She was young but had an uncanny ability to predict alien movements. There's another factor. 3 other species in the Valkyrie collective are watching this war. If humans can resist this long, maybe they can too. The Emperor can't show weakness. Mina had been promoted to lieutenant after saving 30 people during a Valkyrie bombardment of their medical station. She had organized the evacuation, fought off the soldiers who came to finish the job, and then went back twice to pull wounded people from the rubble. Now she coordinated all medical operations for the resistance. So we're in a stalemate, she said. They can't leave without admitting defeat. We can't stop them from occupying territory. Something has to break. That something broke 2 weeks later when a captured Valkyrie officer told Hai Jin everything. The alien had been injured in an ambush and captured before he could activate his suicide device. Hai Jin spent 3 days talking to him, earning his trust, making him see that humans weren't the monsters his government claimed. We never wanted to fight, the alien said. Through the translator, our species evolved without predators. We do not understand war the way you do. When we encountered other species, they always submitted when they saw our power. We thought Earth would be the same, but we didn't submit. Hai Jin said no, and now my people are dying for a war they do not understand. Back home there are protests, parents asking why their children are being sent to die on this strange world. The emperor says it is necessary for security, but many do not believe him anymore. How do we end this? You cannot not by fighting. The emperor will never surrender. He would destroy this world before admitting defeat. Then what do we do? The alien looked at her with eyes that seemed almost human in their sadness. Make it cost too much. Make every day more expensive than the last. Eventually, the emperor's own people will force him to leave. That is your only hope. Major Taiwan in Busausen had his own idea. He commanded what was left of the Korean Navy, 3 submarines that had survived the initial attack by being underwater during the strikes. The Valkyrie are bringing in a troop carrier next week, he reported. It's going to land in the ocean and offload soldiers onto transport ships. We're going to sink it with what? Hien Wu asked. Their ships have shields. Yes, but those shields are designed to stop energy weapons and fast projectiles, old-fashioned naval mines. Move slow through the water, I'm betting. Their shields won't even detect them as a threat. It was a crazy plan. It was also brilliant. The attack happened at dawn. Theory carrier settled onto the ocean surface like a floating city. Transport ships moved toward it to begin loading troops, then the mines drifting. With the current made contact, the explosions were massive. The carrier shields flickered and died. The ship listed to one side and began to sink. 8,000 Valkyrie soldiers drowned that day. The news spread across the planet within hours. If the Korean resistance could sink a capital ship, others could too. The Valkyrie suddenly had to worry about every ocean, every lake, every river. Their logistics became a nightmare. Sung Min led the technical teams in reverse engineering everything they captured. Valkyrie computers, weapons, armor, communication devices, most of it was too advanced to truly understand, but they learned enough. They learned where the weak points were. They learned how to disrupt the systems. They learned how to turn alien technology against its creators. Corporal Jason expanded the tunnel networks connecting resistance cells across entire cities. The underground became humanity's domain, a place where the Valkyrie could not follow. They think they control Seoul, he said, but they only control the surface. Below ground, we own everything. At the end of the first year, Hyun-woo reviewed the numbers. Earth's military had lost 90% of its forces in the first month, but the resistance had grown from thousands to millions. Every day more people joined the fight. Every day the Valkyrie paid a higher price for staying. It was not a war humanity was winning, but it was a war they were no longer losing. And that changed everything. 18 months into the occupation, the Valkyrie Empire was bleeding. Hyun-woo could see it in their intercepted communications, in the way their patrols moved with nervous energy, in how they abandoned outposts that became too dangerous to hold. The mighty empire that had conquered dozens of worlds was being torn apart by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Operation Thunderstrike is ready, Gi announced. She stood before a massive map showing 30 Valkyrie command centers across the globe. Every resistance cell is in position. They're just waiting for your signal. Hyun-woo looked at the faces around the command table. Hyun covered in scars from 100 close calls. Mina, her medical uniform stained with blood that would never wash out. Ha-jin, who had orchestrated an intelligence network that spanned the planet. Sung-min, whose inventions had killed thousands of aliens. Taewon, linked in by video from Busausen, his submarine still hunting Valkyrie ships. General Kyung-soo, the former defense minister who had emerged from hiding to coordinate global strategy. If we do this, there's no going back, General Kyung-soo said. We in LT Unk and GT LL be committing every fighter we have. If it fails, the Valkyrie will crush what's left of us. And if it works, Hyun-woo asked, if it works, we prove that Earth can strike anywhere, anytime. We prove that occupying our world costs more than it's worth. Hyun-woo picked up the radio transmitter. His hand was steady. All cells, this is command. Execute Thunderstrike. Hit them everywhere at once. Make them feel what we felt when they burned our cities. Make them understand the cost of underestimating us. The attacks began at Midnight in Seoul, De Hyun led a team into the Valkyrie regional headquarters. They moved through the underground tunnels that the aliens still refused to patrol. Explosive charges were placed. With precision, the building came down at exactly midnight, killing everyone. Inside, in New York, what remained of the American military hit 3 command posts simultaneously. In London, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, Tokyo, Beijing, and 20 other cities, resistance fighters struck at the same moment. The Valkyrie's communication network went dark, their command structure collapsed into chaos, but the aliens had a response ready. A massive ship appeared in orbit, larger than any they had deployed before. Jae-young's screens lit up with warnings, it's charging weapons. Hyun-woo, I think they're going to use their doomsday device. The broadcast came through on every frequency. People of Earth, you have proven too dangerous to integrate. The Valkyrie Collective will now sterilize your planet. You had your chance to surrender, now you will have extinction. Hyun-woo felt his blood run cold. They had pushed too hard. They had made the aliens desperate enough to destroy everything. How long until they fire? 6 hours. They're broadcasting the countdown to break our morale. They want us to spend our last hours in terror. But Private Sohyun was studying her screens with an intense focus. Something's wrong. The power readings don't match. That ship isn't generating enough energy to destroy a planet. I think it's a bluff. You think? Daein asked. You want to bet the entire human race on? You think? I spent 18 months studying their technology. I know how their power systems work. That ship is broadcasting a lot of signals and making threatening noises, but it doesn't have the power to do what they're claiming. Sung-min was already pulling up schematics from captured Valkyrie data. She's right, look at these numbers. Planet killer weapon would need a power signature at least 100 times larger. This is just a fear weapon. They're counting on us surrendering before we figure out it's fake. Then we take it, Hyun-woo said. Everyone stared at him. You want to capture an orbital weapons platform? General Kyung Soo asked. How? The same way we've been winning this war. We be unpredictable. We do what they think is impossible. Taewon's face on the video screen split into a grin. My submarines can launch boarding teams. The Valkyrie never defended against underwater approaches because they didn't think we could reach orbit from the ocean, because we can't. Dean pointed out. No, but we can get close enough to their supply shuttles, the ones that land on ocean platforms, to refuel. We take one of those shuttles and fly it up to the weapon ship. They'll think it's a normal supply run. It was insane. It was also their only chance. The assault team consisted of 30 fighters. Hyun-woo led them personally. They captured a supply shuttle at dawn, killing the crew before they could send a warning. Sun-min hotwired the controls. Min prepared medical supplies for the casualties they knew were coming. Da-hyun checked everyone's weapons, making sure they had the clothes, combat tools that worked against Valkyrie shields. The flight to the orbital platform took 3 hours. Every minute Hyun-woo expected them to be discovered, but the Valkyrie were too focused on their countdown broadcast, too confident that humanity would surrender any moment. The shuttle docked, the airlock opened, 30 humans poured into a ship designed to hold 500 aliens. What followed was brutal. The Valkyrie had superior armor and weapons, but humans had desperation and fury. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they fought their way to the command center. Dahian took down 6 aliens with nothing but a knife and determination. Mina saved 3 wounded fighters while holding off a Valkyrie counterattack with a captured weapon. Hyan Wu reached the command center with 10 soldiers left. The Valkyrie commander was broadcasting the final countdown to Earth. 1 hour remains, prepare for extinction. Hyan Wu shot him in the back, the shield sparked but failed against the slow-moving blade he threw a second. Later, the alien fell and the countdown stopped. Sunmen accessed the ship. Systems, this is incredible. This ship isn't a weapon, it's a communication relay. They were never going to destroy Earth, they were just trying to scare us into surrendering, but the ship had something else, power, enough power to send a pulse that would disable the Valkyrie's atmospheric suppressors across the entire planet. The same suppressors that had crippled human electronics for 18 months. Do it, Hyan Wu ordered. Pulse went out across Earth. Human satellites came back online. Computer systems restarted. Communication networks reconnected. For the first time since the invasion, humanity could see the full picture of their own resistance, and it was beautiful. Millions of fighters, thousands of active resistance cells, civilians supporting the fight in countless ways. The Valkyrie hadn't been fighting thousands of insurgents, they had been fighting an entire species that refused to die. Hi, Jin's voice came through the radio. Han Wu were picking up communications from other species in the Valkyrie Collective. 3 of them are sending messages of support to Earth. They're saying if we can resist, maybe they can too. The Emperor is facing a political crisis back home. Hyan Wu looked at Earth through the ship's windows. From orbit, the scars of war were visible, burned cities, cratered landscapes, but also lights, thousands and thousands of lights where people lived and fought and refused to surrender. Send a message to the Valkyrie Emperor. Han Wu said, tell him he has 24 hours to begin withdrawing his forces. If he refuses, we'll show him that capturing 1 ship was just the beginning. Tell him that humanity is done being afraid. The message went out. The galaxy heard it, and the Valkyrie Empire learned what it meant to fight a species that would rather die than kneel. The Valkyrie Emperor did not respond to Han Wu and LT, Unk and GT's ultimatum. Instead, he sent more ships. But this time something was different. The ships arrived, but they did not attack. They simply took positions in orbit and waited inside the Valkyrie government. A war was being fought that had nothing to do with weapons. Their ruling council is fracturing. Hayagen reported, we're intercepting dozens of emergency communications. Half of them want to continue the war. The other half want to cut their losses and leave. 3 other species in their empire are threatening rebellion if this continues. Hyan Wu stood in the captured orbital platform, now serving as humanity's first space military base. The irony was not lost on him. The aliens had brought the tools of their own defeat. What about our people? What do they want? General Kaionsu's face appeared on the screen from Earth. They want revenge. They want justice. They want to make the Valkyrie pay for every human life lost. But most of all, they want to make sure this never happens again. Then we don't wait for them to decide. Hyan Wu turned to Sunung Min. Can you get that Valkyrie warship we captured last month? Operational, the engineer looked up from his console. He had been working non-stop for 3 days, mapping the ship's systems. It's possible the design is strange, but the principles are the same. Power generation, propulsion, weapons. I can make it work. How long? Give me a week. You have 3 days. Sun Men did it in 2. The Valkyrie military outpost at Proxima Station was supposed to be safe. It was 3 light years from Earth, a supply depot where ships refueled and resupplied. The commanders there had been sending resources to the Earth invasion for 2 years, never thinking they would face any danger themselves. Then a Valkyrie warship appeared. Its identification codes were correct. Its approach vector was standard. The station's defense system did not activate because the ship was broadcasting proper authorization. By the time they realized the ship was crewed by humans, it was too late. Dean led the assault, 50 human fighters against 200 Valkyrie station personnel. But the aliens were logistics officers and engineers, not combat soldiers. They had never been attacked before. They did not know how to respond to enemies who fought with knives and improvised weapons, and a fury born from watching their world burn. The station fell in 4 hours. Its supplies were captured. Its communication arrays were repurposed, and a message was sent across Valkyrie space showing humans standing in a captured alien facility, proving that they could strike anywhere. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy learned. Guy had been broadcasting Earth story since they recaptured the communication satellites. Not propaganda, not lies, just the truth. Videos of the first attack, recordings of cities burning, then videos of humans fighting back, of resistance fighters ambushing patrols, of civilians risking everything to support the war effort of a species that refused to accept extinction. The response was overwhelming. 3 species in the Valkyrie collective saw the broadcasts and began their own resistance movements. Anti-war protests erupted on the Valkyrie home world. Parents whose children had died on Earth demanded answers. Politicians who had supported the invasion suddenly faced angry constituents asking why this small planet had cost so much. The Emperor tried to control the narrative, but it was too late. The truth was spreading faster than he could contain it. 2 weeks after the Proxima Station attack, Valkyrie delegation arrived at Earth. They came on an unarmed ship, broadcasting peaceful intentions. Yan Wu met them in neutral space aboard a human shuttle with Mina Jiang and General Qiang Su. The lead Valkyrie diplomat was old, his skin marked with patterns that indicated high status. He looked at the humans with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. The Emperor has authorized me to discuss terms. The terms are simple, Yan Wu said. Complete withdrawal of all Valkyrie forces from Earth, reparations for the damage caused, full disclosure of all technology used in the invasion, and a non-aggression treaty that your empire will honor. Those terms are unacceptable. The Emperor cannot admit defeat. It would destabilize the entire collective. Then he can watch his empire fall apart, Jiang said. She activated a holographic display showing resistance movements on 3 other worlds. Your member species are watching Earth. They see that resistance is possible. Hell, long before your whole empire collapses. The diplomat was silent for a long moment. There is another option. Emperor steps down. A new government forms one that seeks peace instead of expansion, but this cannot appear to be a surrender to Earth. It must look like an internal reform. We don't care how it looks, General Kyong-soo said. We care about results. Your forces leave, you pay for the damage, you never come back. The negotiations took 3 weeks. During that time, fighting continued on Earth. Valkyrie forces, demoralized and confused by their government's indecision, began surrendering in larger numbers. Some fought to the end, still believing in their empire's superiority, but most just wanted to go home. The final treaty was signed aboard the orbital platform. The Valkyrie emperor had been forced to abdicate. A new government formed, one that promised reforms and peace. They agreed to all of Earth's demands. Complete withdrawal would take 6 months. Reparations would be paid over 10 years. War crimes tribunals would be established to judge those responsible for civilian deaths. It was not perfect justice, but it was enough. Hyun-woo watched the last Valkyrie transport leave Earth's atmosphere. Beside him, Dawn let out a long breath. Mina wiped tears from her eyes. Jung smiled for the first time in 2 years. Hae-jin stood with her hand over her heart. Taewon, Sun Min, So Hyun-young, and General Kyong-soo all gathered to watch the enemy depart. We won, someone said. We actually won. No, Hyun-woo said quietly. We survived. There's a difference. Earth had lost 3 billion people. Entire cities were ruins. The economic damage would take generations to repair, but humanity had also gained something. They had proven that advanced technology did not guarantee victory, that determination and adaptability could overcome superior firepower, that a species willing to pay any price for freedom could not be conquered. 10 years later, Hyun-woo stood before a memorial wall. It stretched for kilometers, covered in names of the dead. He came here every year on the anniversary of the invasion. He was older now, his hair white, his body marked by scars that would never fully heal. Mina had established medical exchange programs with 6 other species, teaching them human techniques and learning alien medicine in return. Sun Min led Earth's technology division, combining human innovation with captured alien knowledge to build defenses that would prevent another invasion. Jiang ran the diplomatic corps, ensuring humanity's voice was heard across the galaxy. Daein trained the new military in the tactics that had won the war. Jin coordinated intelligence networks that spanned dozens of worlds. Earth had become a power in the galaxy, not through conquest or intimidation, but through proving that some species could not be broken. The Terran doctrine, as it came to be known, was studied by every military in known space. Asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, using the enemy's expectations against them, fighting smarter instead of harder. 6 other species had won their freedom using the techniques humans had developed. 3 more were actively resisting occupation. The galaxy was changing, and Earth was at the center of that change, but the cost was never forgotten. Hyun-woo touched the memorial wall, feeling the names carved into the stone. We paid the price, he whispered. We paid it in blood and tears and lives. We can never get back, but we're still here. They tried to erase us, and we're still here. A young soldier approached, no older than Yan-woo had been when the war started. Sir, they're asking for you at the ceremony. Hyun-woo nodded. He took one last look at the wall, at the billions of names representing billions of stories. Then he turned and walked toward the future, a future humanity had earned by refusing to die, a future bought with sacrifice and determination and the simple truth that some species would rather fight forever than surrender. Once the Valkyrie had assumed humanity was helpless. They had learned the price of that assumption. The entire galaxy had watched them learn it, and the lesson would not be forgotten, not ever.